I don't know how close Stats and Hero are. They were kind of on opposing teams back in the Kesper days. But he's a great guy. Great guy. Great to see him flaunting that profile pic. Beautiful, beautiful. And spawning in the top left-hand corner of Dragon Scales, we have the Shield of Ire himself, dusting that shield off after quite a long hiatus in that military. The ex-military Protoss representing Kwangdong Freaks. It is Stats. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Dragon Scales, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Zerg player representing Shopify Rebellion. It is Scarlett. Stats, of course, in his day, in his era, was the best Protoss player in the world, or one of the best Protosses in the world, who was always vying for that spot alongside Zest, for example, alongside Rain even before that. Stats, though, had a lot of fans, myself included. Like, Stats, he's so lovable. Always smiling, always laughing, always having a good time. We would be seeing some Foreigner House streams, and Stats would show up there in the Team Unity house with Scarlett, with Special, with No Regrets, having a good time. Yeah, just a really likable personality overall. You love to see, it. And it's great to see him back and returning to StarCraft, already in form, already popping off. It's crazy. It hasn't been that long. It's been, again, like maybe over a month since his return, and he's just regained so much skill. You know how it is. Class is permanent. Skill is temporary. I said that the wrong way around, but skill is temporary. Class is permanent. So it's great to see Stats. You know, it's like riding a bike, playing Protoss. I'll leave it at that. But it's great to see him returning, and we'll see how he compares here to a player like Scarlett, because Scarlett has been on fire recently. She has been putting in a lot of work practicing. She's been looking in form, getting ready for ESL Masters America. But Stats does have that legacy behind him, and we already have our tech of choice. We're opening up with a Stargate. The stock standard Stargate opener. What's important is that Stats is currently up to date with the meta, is fully aware of how Hero's been playing, has been emulating him quite a bit. I think that's why we do see that Hero portrait as well. Makes sense. It's crazy. Like, what's crazy about the Hero portrait and why I brought it up is that Stats has an in-game portrait. Like, he has a portrait in-game and he's not using it, which is crazy. Like, the respect he has for Hero. You love to see it. The Adept is looking to shade in towards the main base. Just be a little bit annoying here. I mean, we have some queens and some links to keep up, as Scarlett was forced to take the unnatural natural. So there's a bit of area here that can be abused, but Scarlett has nicely split up her queens and her links in her natural and her main. And we'll see where we go from here. Again, when it comes to the series that we casted between Stats and Creator, Stats was for the most part the defender. It was really like, I don't want to say impressive. That's a little bit generic. It was just inspiring. I don't know, like, I was getting nostalgia watching Stats the other day. Like, casting Stats in the qualifiers, I was like, he's back, Pop. He's back. It's beautiful. Just this hyper defensive style, and that doesn't mean that he turtles. That just means that typically he's waiting for you to make the first move and then he just counterattacks, you know. That's where his strength does lie after he's able to defend well. So I'm really curious to see how he applies that into this matchup, as we just see our Oracle opener going for that third base as well. What's interesting is that the first Oracle does actually stay at home, waiting until the second one shows up before moving out across the map. We're looking to get some drone damage. Meanwhile, we do have a third Oracle on the way as well. And so far, Scarlett has done a great job at keeping up with the queens, but no, there is no Spore here at the natural base, and already 2, 3, up, 4, just barely 4 drones are going to go down. Scarlett punished a little. No! She's punished a little bit for not having a Spore at her natural, and she doesn't have one at her third base either. 7 drones going down in total. The initial 4 and then 3 afterwards. So not the best start here for Scarlett. Is now splitting up her queens between her bases. But at this point, things are starting to snowball. I'm starting to get worried, to be honest. The 3 oracles are heading in towards the main base. We have a lot of adepts shading in towards the natural. How good is the target firing going to be here as the drones, they do come back. The adepts, they're quite focusing the workers. Oracle's kind of waiting for the moment here in the main. 5 more drones are going to be going down. The oracles maybe even waiting for the queens to move out of position here. But the queens do split up between the main and the natural. Lings are rushing on in as well. We are going to clean up these adepts, but not before 7 drones go down. Do we have a... Oh, okay, thank God. Do we have a spore at the 3rd yet? We do, thankfully. But despite that, another 3 drones. Ugh, and that's a lot of economic damage. Looking at the unit lost tab, 17 drones in total. An entire mineral line already. This is not the best start for Scarlett. She has to do some counter damage. She's here, she's across the map with her Lings. But the wall is the wall. We have a shield battery, we have Sim City, we have units. The Lings can't do much of anything here. And we're actually going into a pretty fast infestation pit. I'm curious. So we can go one of 2 ways here. Like, again, just because this is so quick, we could, if we wanted to, I guess, go into swarm hosts. They are a good way to come back if you're behind, just because they do gain a lot of value over time and they can trade pretty efficiently. So I can see the logic behind going for that. Otherwise, we may just go into a heavy link style and go into something like a fast hive for adrenal glands. But the oracles, they dive into the main base. They scout the infestation pit as well. Oh, don't quite get the queens. This time, much better defense by Scarlett. She takes down one of those oracles. I'm curious here as gases are going to be taken. Are we going for those swarm hosts? I mean, the important thing to take note of is that stats did scout, so it's possible that Scarlett was thinking about it, but because the infestation got scouted by those oracles, that she may be changing her mind. There we go, we do have that hive on the way. Scarlett just going to be droning up to 76. 67 even. Yeah, it's been a long day. Been a long day, Papi. We've got our 4th on the way, 5th on the way as well. Scarlett trying to recover from those earlier losses. And unfortunately, because of this, like, stats, he has the freedom to take his own 4th. Doesn't really have too many units here to speak of, but because of his oracles back at home, because of his shield batteries, like, he is pretty safe to do so. It's going to be walling up here on the right-hand side. We have double Colossus production on the way as well. This is something that Hero, as well as a lot of the Korean protoss, actually have been popularizing. This is supposed to be a great answer to the heavy Ling Bane commitments here that is typically used against Blink Stalkers. So we'll see how hard Scarlett does commit. Oracle's dipping in towards the main, getting 2 more drone kills. Now the Colossi are coming out, and again, this just means that the Ling-based army isn't really going to find too much damage here. It's going to struggle to anyway. And we're going Ling Bane all the way into Ultras. We saw that earlier against Gemini, and now we're trying to see it here against Stats. Unfortunately, against Gemini, Scarlett was free to drone up to 96. Now she's going for a similar style here. She's droning up to 91. Ay, ay, ay. It's a lot of drones. She's reached her ideal economy for this. Can she survive long enough to get those Ultras up and running? That's the question. The crease spread looking quite impressive as well, getting towards the halfway mark, covering all of our bases. Covering the 4th. Unfortunately, because it took us a little bit too long to get to this drone count, like Scarlett doesn't have the freedom to go for those mainly run-bys that we saw earlier against Gemini. She doesn't have the spare resources to do so. So we're just going to be working on our Ultras slowly but surely. Kindness plating is on the way. Against all these Colossi, I don't know if I'm convinced by the Ultras, not going to lie. Not saying that the Colossi would do well against the Ultras, but they're just going to do so well against everything else. We'll see. His stats hasn't really pushed out so far. He's been going for some harassment here and there, but for the most part, he's just been content, staying back, slowly taking his 4th base. I imagine going to be taking his 5th behind this. Oh, but now with that prism, he's looking to push out. Looking to just clear some creep for the time being. Oh, Sling's trying to catch one of these Colossi, but shield batteries in position. We're able to keep it alive. Vipers are on the way. That will definitely help against this. How many Colossus do we have? Jesus. We have 5. Normally we stop at 4. Just an excess amount of Colossi because why not? Storm already done. High Templar on the way. Because of that, we're going to have a little bit of a dance here between the High Templar and the Vipers. Vipers looking to abduct. High Templar looking to feedback. Here we go. Scarlett has maxed out on Ling Bane Ultra. But she's only got 2 Ultras. That's not a lot, to be honest. Zealot Rabbi is going to be caught out. We do have a wall of spines here, trying to buy a little bit of time here for 4 more Ultras to pop out. Oh, and here we go. Scott's going to pull the trigger. She's going to be going for the Blinding Clouds instead, but the Storms! The Storms annihilate the Ling Bane, and now only Ultras remain, and this is what I was worried about. We had so much splash damage available. The Ling Bane just melts, and the Ultras survive, but there aren't that many of them. We blink on forward, we focus on one of the Vipers, and now we can focus on the Ultras one after another. The Queen count is not high enough to keep them alive. Oh, and the lasers are too much. GG gets called. Stats takes game number 1. Oh, GG. Again, a lot of the strength behind that push did come down to the fact that Stats was just all over the harassment, was all over Scarlett in the early game with the Adepts, with the Oracles. So if you remember, Stats did kill 17 drones. Oof, that was brutal. And that also kind of led to why, even though Scarlett was droning up quite heavily and trying to get into Ling Bane Ultra, didn't really have too many of those Ultras, didn't really have the gas income at the time just because it took too long to get there. Oh, GG. GG. And now Stats does take a lead in this series, but it's a best of 3. You know, we can come back here. We can fight back in game number 2 and force an ace match. And game 2 is going to be taking place on Neo Humanity. No mind. Here we go. Spawning in the top left-hand corner of Neo Humanity, we have the South Korean Protoss player himself representing Kwangdong Freaks. It's the Shield of Ire. It is Stats. And spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Neo Humanity, we have his opponent. We have the Canadian Zerg player representing Shopify Rebellion. It is Scarlett. And I'm curious. I'm curious because Stats, he played a pretty slow and methodical game last game. You know, initially, of course, again, he was harassing with the Adepts, with the Oracles. But from that point, he was very meticulously, very slowly taking his 3rd, taking his 4th, taking up as well, until he had his ideal army, where then he was confident to move out across the map. Something that I'm sure and long-time StarCraft fans are familiar with Stats. But on a map like Neo Humanity, it can sometimes be difficult to pull that off. I say sometimes, it's... This map has like conflicting features, you know, the rush distance is short, so we can be aggressive, but it's also really defensive as well, so it can be really difficult to pull off all-ins. It can be really difficult to pull apart the defending player. So I think this is a really smart map pick here from Stats. I think he can work wonders here on Neo Humanity. Meanwhile, Scarlett, what does she have up her sleeve? That's kind of the other big question. And we saw her warm up against Gemini. Did see that. Here against Stats, he is a bit of a different beast. This time, of course, Scarlett going for the 15 hatch, able to throw it down on location, able to avoid that probe. You love to see it. And once again, the pylon is thrown down a little bit closer to the edge of the main base. This should be for another Stargate opener. It looks like Stats isn't really planning to switch things up too much. I don't even know if he's ever done a Twilight Council opener in current meta. Does he have it in it? Does he have it in him to go into Glaive Adepts? I just don't see it. I don't see it happening. It's just not stats. And there it is. It's not a Twilight Council. It is going to be that Stargate once again. As Warp Gate was delayed, I'm sure that was spotted by Scarlett as well, so she's aware. Fully aware of what's going on. And hopefully this time she's able to have her queens in position. Even against Gemini as well. We saw Gemini find some damage on Neo Humanity. But hopefully this time Scarlett's able to keep up with the Oracles, keep up with her ass. Not allow things to get too out of hand. As the Adept 4 stats is just going to be confirming the lack of additional gases, the third base location. Making sure that nothing crazy is going on. That Scarlett did indeed pull out of gas as well at 100. So from here, Stats can get into his normal game. I'm curious if he's going to have the same setup as well. If you remember, in game 1, Stats actually kept his first Oracle back at home, just making sure that the third base got up and running and then moved out with his second. As opposed to a player like Hero who'll just zoom across the map with his first one and kind of delay his third a little bit more for his second Oracle to show up. Just like an interesting difference between Stats and Hero. As the Slowling's going to be moving out, and I believe, yeah, he didn't catch those Adepts in the end, thankfully. Now that the third base is on the way, we do see our 2 Oracles zooming across the map to meet up with those Adepts. And at this time, we do have a Spore at the natural. No Spore in the main or the third. So there are a couple of vulnerable locations here. Stats going to be looking for them. For the time being, is forced back. Does double back towards that natural, but yeah, Scarlett is safe and sound. You love to see it. And we have that plus on melee on the way as well. Again, kind of what we should be expecting here, especially against Blink Stalker compositions. Or Blink Stalker follow-ups. Meanwhile, oh, the transferring drones get here a little bit too early. 5 drones go down. Meanwhile, there was a bit of a Link counterattack, but we do have plenty of Adepts back at home to defend. So despite the good start, Scarlett does end up losing 5 workers here. Now with triple Oracle, we can go back in. Looking for some more damage. We do go for the main. We're going to get another 3. But with the target fire, we do take down one of the Oracles. At least. 11 drones for 1 Oracle. Still a better trade for Stats. At least Scarlett is able to bring one of them down. And behind this, oh, we have something a little bit different. Oh my. So it is going to be a Twilight Council and a Forge, but not just one. We have a second Forge on the way as well, so some greedier play here from Stats. This does typically signify that Stats isn't going to be as on the map and as active with his Blink Stalkers, but he wasn't that way anyway in game 1. As we get our third up and running, immediately we have a 4th base as well. Stats being so greedy, not just with his tech, but also with his economy. Welcome to Neo Humanity. Oh god, just setting up defensively back at home. We're even going to be knocking down these rocks in the middle of the map to make it that much more difficult for Scarlett to counterattack. The towers will fall. Oh my god, we're even going for a second Robo. Jesus, I don't know what to say. Double Forge, double Robo, the Bay, the 4th base, just taking up in every direction, Bobby. Oh my god. And the reality is that Scarlett can't really do too much about this. The SimCity is just too good. The shield batteries, the overcharge, the Oracles, the Adepts. Scarlett is looking to meet this with her own greed, and it looks like she's going for something very similar to game 1. I guess maybe this is something that she's working on. We saw it against Gemini, saw it in game 1 against Stats, but Scarlett is going to be droning quite heavily here and taking into Hive. Once again, the Revelation does get eyes on that Infestation Pit. Hive already being morphed in, despite the Revelation as well. You love to see it. We don't even care. But yeah, we're just going to be droning heavily here and working in towards those ultras once again. Meanwhile, Stats working his double Colossi production, walling off here at his fourth. Oh my god, throwing up a wall of cannons, a wall of shield batteries. This is the Shield of Fire. He is back. Oh my god. But again, Neo Humanity does kind of lend towards this play. Here we go. Adepts are going to be rocking in towards the natural base. Nice harassment here out of Stats. Not going to take this lying down and get 7 drones. Keeps every adept alive. The Prism gets out as well. Scarlett was not anticipating any kind of Prism harass. At the same time, the Oracles dip back in as well. Not going to do as much damage, but again, just keeping Scarlett busy back at home. Meanwhile, Scarlett did mix up her build a little bit here. I don't know if you saw, but she did actually make a handful of Infestors. 2 Infestors are now out. 2 Vipers on the way, and there is that Ultra Cavern. Boy, but again, I feel like Scarlett isn't at that sweet spot that we saw earlier, you know, droning up to 90 plus workers to be able to afford all of this. And if you thought 5 Colossus was insane earlier, we're working a little bit more than that. We're going up to 6 Colossus already. Twilight Council's on the way. Sorry, Templar Archives is on the way. Should be seeing that Storm soon as well. I feel like we're just getting a bit of a repeat of Game 1. Bit of a difference though. We have a Spire on the way. So Scarlett is getting ready to transition if she needs to. Into Corruptors, into Broodlords, or maybe even a Muta switch. Ooh, oh god, oh god. Not like this. As a decent chunk of Lings do go down to the mass Colossi. Look at the units lost tab. Look at the minerals lost. Jesus. 40 Lings going down. The lasers, Papi. You gotta respect them. Lings are looking for some damage here. Head towards the natural. Head towards the third base as well. Hey, we're gonna be able to get a surround on these Archons, but the Colossi are in position. The Archons are saved. Lings headed towards that 5th base as well, but oh my god, oh god! The rally! The horror. So, before all of that happened, 40 Lings had died. Oh my god, that was 60. That we've reached a nice, clean 100 Lings going down. Ay, ay, ay. That was a lot of supply thrown away there. Scarlett's going for another Ling counterattack. We do have the Greater Spire on the way to go into Broodlords. You'd love to see it. Unfortunately, that's going to take a while, and because we're losing so many of these Lings, I feel like Stats is not going to give Scarlett the time to get Broodlords out. Here we go. Stats has maxed out. We have our 4 bases. We have our 5th base getting saturated as we speak. And it's time to push out across the map. And it's Neo Humanity, which really means it's just time to push out and we're there. It's... we just turn a corner and we're already here towards the bases of Scarlett. Oh my god, the feedbacks are insane. The Infestors go down immediately. The Vipers as well! Oh my god. And there are those Storms. The Ling Bane evaporates. We do have many more Ultras this time. Do we have enough energy for Transfuse? Nice target firing on that Prism. The Ultras are pushing through. This time the Ultra count was high enough, but we are running out of Transfuse energy on these Queens. Colossi are forced back, and they will still clean this up. A better fight for Scarlett, to be honest. She's able to force Stats back, able to regather her energy, consolidate her army. We have 6 more Ultras on the way. Now, what is a little bit scary is that Stats is going to be remaxing on Immortals. Double Immortal production. This is where I would love to see... It's kind of too late. Like, Scarlett is already maxed out. But I think now would be a good moment to start investing into Broodlords. We have a couple of Corruptors already, but Scarlett is maxed, so she actually can't make any Broodlords right now. She has to wait for another fight, wait for another trade, and then she can start, like, transitioning her tech. Well, transitioning her army. Oh. Boy, just needs a moment here to calm down. Bit of a Ling run by, a Ling Bane run by is being set up here on the left-hand side, but it is about to run into the army. Here we go, the High Templar force back. Good pickups here by Stats. Again, we can see Stats right now is pretty vulnerable. Like, he lost a lot of his high-tech units. He got knocked down to around 120 supply. Scarlett has remaxed. And she has to make something happen here. Otherwise, Stats is going to be able to rebuild his army and just be that much better for it. But how do we trade? You know, how do we trade without losing too much? Like, look at how solid the 4th base is. The 5th base in the middle of the map just covered in shield batteries, cannons, stasis traps as well on the left and right-hand side. Like, how is Scarlett meant to trade without losing too much? That's kind of like the tricky position she's in. She can try and go for a run-by, but even then, we see the run-bys are being caught by these stasis traps. Okay, there we go. Broodlords are on the way. 2 of them are in production. Oh no, the Broodlords! Oh, they're exposed, Buffy, and Scarlett is out of position. Stats is moving on in, diving on top of these Vipers, on top of these Broodlords. 1 Viper is going to go down immediately. We have the Storms, the Ultras were not what they needed to be. The Broodlords go down. Finally, the Ultras rock up, but by this point, it's a little bit too late. Look at how many Immortals there are. GG gets called, and Stats takes game number 2 and the series. Oh, GG. Oh, that was such an unfortunate timing for Scarlett. She had her Broodlords on the way. She had a decent Ultra army as well. Just, yeah, in the middle of moving out across the map. Oh. And on top of that, I mean, there were a lot of Immortals, so would have been a tough fight regardless. GG, well played. Congratulations to Stats as he does take the series 2-0 and will move on to the next round. My condolences to Scarlett, but it does look as if, at least for this tournament, she is working on that kind of Ling Bane into Ultra style, into Fast Hive. We have seen that quite a bit on Neo Humanity. And it doesn't look too bad there. We can even see that Scarlett is willing to go into Broodlords from that point as well. But Stats just looking a little bit better on the day. The shield pappy. And Scarlett is going to be eliminated from KSL. Stats moves on into, I believe, a semi-finals match. Boy, here we go.